What's up, guys? Welcome to the JLX Friends and Benefits podcast with me, your host, as always, Xander Conobir. Today, Jack and I have a very special guest and a very good friend of ours, Felipe. Felipe now lives down in New Zealand, but Felipe went to X University with us and is a huge believer in the things that we can do for ourselves, things like meditation, self-talk, and all of that good stuff. We're going to dive into those with him today, and I hope you enjoy the show. Speak soon. Thank you ever so much, Jack and Felipe, for joining us once again on the podcast. Today we've got a really exciting episode up ahead. We are going to be looking into mindset, wellness, and all sorts of good stuff. So before we kick off, Felipe, thank you again for joining us. What projects have you been up to this week that you're excited about?
This week has been a busy one for me. My partner is at work in Auckland, so I've been on house duty. We got a new pup in the house, a new dog. And it's been challenging. Been having to walk him first thing in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, get back home, do my practice, meditate, read, and then it's off to work. And after that, squeeze my workout in, come home, eat, bed, repeat again. So it's been a busy week for me, but it's been a good week. Yeah.
Spot on. So you've been kept busy then with the new dog, the walking the dog, all the house jobs and everything.
Or something. And then you get older and you're like, nah, fair play. Like it is a huge consideration.
I'm with Felipe. When my partner goes away, I'm like, what does this bottle do? It's all the little things you don't see that they do that really contributes to like the happy, healthy lifestyle.
That's it.
And obviously, I think for us as well, being very, very busy people, it's like the facilitation of that as well. It's being able to do that.
For sure.
I've got a little list of chores to do now because I just don't think about that kind of thing. And it's something I'm embarrassed about, to be honest. But I go do my list of chores and it keeps everyone a bit happier.
I guess we all have that list of chores in our house. And it's the same on mine. Keeping on top of things. And I have my chores throughout the week. And I have to get them done to a certain standard.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, we get told off. So that's it.
Xander, what about you? What have you been up to?
I have been trying to free up some time at the moment, actually. We've got some projects on the go at the moment, which is really exciting. We were waiting to kind of move forward with them based on whether gyms would be opening or not opening. So that's been obviously something here in the UK. Obviously, Felipe, you probably don't have that problem, I imagine. But it's worth mentioning, by the way, that obviously Felipe's down in New Zealand. So good evening to him. So again, it's just about trying to free up some time. And I think, I'm sure you'll all agree with this, is when you have loads of jobs to do or loads of things on your mind, it doesn't leave you a lot of room for imagination or a lot of room for like concentrated thinking on things. I find even if I try to take myself away from a situation, I love going to the beach, I love going on walks and stuff like that. But even then, I kind of think this is more rest time than thinking time. But as soon as I manage to free up a day where I can kind of take myself away from the office or from the situation and just sit on the beach or, have proper relaxation, I find it's really beneficial for being able to get some really deep thinking time in. And that's why I think the best ideas come out of me personally. What about yourself, Jack? What have you been up to?
Mine's been last couple of weeks, really, not just a week, moving into a new place. And it's been just the kind of the opposite of what you're saying about trying to create time. It's just been trying to fill every little bit of spare time with, moving stuff, making stuff, and just going through that whole process of getting everything in and getting it nice. But I've actually, do you know what? I have enjoyed it more so than I have in the past when moving, because I think I've actually given it the kind of time and respect, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Rather than perhaps before thinking of it as a distraction or something that I like quote unquote have to do and I just want it to be over. I've tried to actually really tune into enjoying the process of it, seeing things come together, seeing the improvements in the place, actually doing a lot of like the handiwork myself, which if anyone knows me knows I'm not a DIY guy. That's not But like I took on that challenge, to do those things, and it's resulted in it being something that I enjoy a lot more than I think I would have in previous had I've
Yeah.
just paid a handyman to do all the work. And it feels good afterwards as well to be looking around the place and know that you did it. You created a lot of the stuff.
I think that actually takes us perfectly into some of the conversations we were going to be having today, because it's about the process, whether you involve yourself in it or not, and the direction in which you do that. Because there's a lot of things that we quote unquote have to do, but the emotional, psychological state that we involve ourselves in that, I think, greatly determines the outcome we feel from it. I'm a bit like you, Jack. We did move house last year, 2 years ago. And when we did that, my partner loves interior design. So she loves going through all that stuff, putting everything in nice places. And I just think, I cannot see the appeal of this. Just put it down and it'll be fine. But because of that, I had that really like aggro mentality of like, do we need to be doing this now? Like, we've just moved a whole house. Can we just sit down? She's like, no, this is important. This is good fun. And I'm thinking, good fun. Like, wow. But looking back, had I have had that mentality like you have now of diving in and being like, this is what I could enjoy doing, like I could have my own stamp on this, that would have changed that a great deal. And I probably would have enjoyed it far more than I did.
Yeah, and I think regardless with something like that, and this doesn't have to just be applied to moving house, the situation is a situation that has to get done anyway. This was a shift I had a few years ago that's always really stuck with me, is that if there's something you have to do, then you can either do it with a smile or you can do it with anger and angst. And actually that is mostly up to you. And that could be something as simple as like your daily commute. Like if you're driving in the car regularly, there's going to be people that are going to cut you up on roundabouts. There's going to be people that speed too fast past you. There's going to be people going too slow and you're behind them. And there's going to be things that just piss you off day to day. Regardless, you're still going to have to be on the road. You're still going to have to do that. And so are you going to do that with a smile or not? Because otherwise it's still going to happen. It's not that if you get angry at it, you then are suddenly going to be able to teleport to places and you don't have to drive. Like regardless, you're still going to have to do it. So what's your attitude towards it going to be?
I think the key to that, and the important thing to note is, as you said just earlier, it's a choice. I think people fail to realize that a lot of what we engage in emotionally and verbally is a choice. And with that in mind, if we think of things as a choice, then what we do means we have control over that. And that's very important, because that also means we have responsibility, and responsibility meaning ability in our response. So we don't have to show, I'm terrible for getting angry at people on the road. And that's usually because I think, why would you put everyone else in danger by driving like that? Like, did you need to do that? But at the same time, I can't do anything about it. I can't jump into their car and slap them one. I could drive past them and, wave my fist. But what is that even going to do?
Yeah.
And that then only is going to upset me more, because I have that frustration to carry with me for the rest of the day. And something that I've worked incredibly hard on doing is going, that did really piss me off, but I'm going to forget about it now. Because, like yesterday, we were on a walk and we live just next to a 30-mile-an-hour road. And I'm not joking, but this guy must have been doing close to 85. It was ridiculous. And you just think, if a child walked out, like, what are you going to do? But, for that split second, I was furious, because I thought, why would you, what are you in so much of a rush for that needs to occur? Yet, at the same time, there's nothing I can do. I can't get my phone out and be like, speed trap. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's completely out of my control, that frustration. So it's important to let that go.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that, Felipe?
I think, as you guys said, I think a lot of my perspective on that comes from life experience and from reading. I know Jack's a big fan of Men's Search for Meaning, and he actually got me into that book.
It's a great book.
And that gives you a great insight into how you can see and create purpose even in the direst of situations, and you can choose how you react to a certain challenge in your life in a positive or negative way. And I think the important thing is to always see the challenges, they come into your life so that you can grow and you can become better. And by taking challenges in that manner, you tend to have a more positive outlook when you face them, rather than feel like the world's against you and feeling sorry for yourself and pity and think, oh, my life sucks. That's the big thing. It's to try and see challenges in a good way and face them with a positive attitude and tackle them with your head high and try and overcome them.
I think one of the things I'd really like to tap into in this with both of you, and hopefully be able to contribute some bits myself as well, is actual tactics and ways that we've done that as well, and things that we use it. Because you hear all the time, challenges are a chance to adapt, turn a negative into a positive, and people hear these sorts of things, and I think it's easy to like switch off as soon as you hear it, because for the current state that you're in at that time, it's like, oh yeah, easy for you to say, but, and then they've got a reason as to why they're like that. And we've all been there. Like, all three of us have had our fair share of struggles with mental health and negative experiences and dark times, and to like pretty extreme extents as well. I don't want people to think that we're just privileged people that have floated through life and have never had a problem. We've all been down in some really dark places. And so I think it's worth really explaining what it is that we might have used to actually reframe things and turn things around. Does anything come up for you, Felipe, that you can think of?
Yeah, for me, first and foremost, meditation. I feel like that's the foundation for my mental health. I feel like if I could sort of recommend one thing for people, it would be that they work on some sort of meditation practice. Allow your mind to be empty and free, and so that you can have a fresh perspective on situations and step back. Um, and I feel like that it's so vital for the mental health of people, and I think a lot of people would benefit from doing some sort of meditation. Another thing, I think reading is great for when you are in the middle of a dark time, because with the amount of material out there, there's likely to be a person out there that has been through a similar challenge, and by reading you can understand their perspective, how they overcame the challenge, tools to improve themselves, and I think that's vital. That's vital and really important for people to get into the habit of reading or listening to audiobooks and getting information from people. Try to self improve.
Yeah. I think the meditation thing as well is again maybe in a similar way to saying something like turn negative to positive, something that people can hear and be a little bit adversarial to, and think, again, I can't do that, I can't sit down or whatever. But it has such genuine practical positives that it's not just about sitting on a cushion and smoking weed and thinking of Eastern philosophy. Like, it's not a passive practice. It is actually something that has real tangible benefits in modern day life. Like Xander was saying about how, you want to be able to respond to things. There's a saying, always respond, never react, right? So never go with your immediate, gut feel with something that's just like you jump to I'm angry at that guy speeding. Actually take the time to respond to it and think how you want to respond to that. And that also ties into Viktor Frankl that you mentioned with Man's Search for Meaning, Philippe, which is, he says you have a stimulus, there is a gap, and then there's a response. And meditation widens that gap tenfold. And I say tenfold, it means that you're going from, a thousandth of a second to 100th of a second. Like, it's still a very small gap, but it just gives you enough of that space to actually think, how do I want to respond to this? Not what is my reptilian brain jumping to straight away. And I've also heard it likened to when you're in your thoughts and when everything's just flying around your head, it's like you're in a washing machine, right, while it's spinning around. Whereas once you've cultivated that ability to have the gap and meditate well, it's like you're sat outside looking in through the glass of the washing machine, or you're outside of the eye of a tornado and you're out looking at it. And that ties into also what Xander was saying about, not just having all these things going on and all these behaviors flying around, but actually your best ideas come up when you've got time to think, when you actually take a bit of a step back and you give yourself the opportunity to think and to respond. I think meditation is just invaluable for that. And it can literally change your life substantially with 5 minutes a day, straight up.
I think the interesting and important thing to note about meditation, and this is where I think the hurdle comes up, it's certainly a hurdle that came up to me, was that people completely misunderstand what meditation actually is. I certainly did. When I first heard of meditation, I can remember someone talking to me about it about 5 years ago. And I just remember thinking like, what? But the truth is, the way he explained it was very much on a more like he was a higher being for it. And like it almost sounded like a religious calling, the way he described it to me. And that really put me off. I was like, that doesn't sound like my kind of thing. But, I actually started doing Headspace purely because I couldn't sleep. I had real problems sleeping at university. And then a few months ago, maybe like 6 months ago, I had problems sleeping again. And I thought, I will literally do anything because my sleep hygiene is very, very good. My preparation for sleep is fantastic. Why can I not sleep then says to me something else is at play here. It can't be anything that I'm doing physically before bed because that has always been very good. What else is it? And it was just that my brain wouldn't switch off. So I thought, do you know what? I'll download Headspace. I'll try the 14-day free trial and I'm just going to do it because it's something which I can see benefits a lot of people who I respect in a big way. So I started it, and it effectively, for me, was a way, as Jack has said there, to basically lie on my back and look at my clouds, and the clouds being like all the stuff that's just flowing around my head. But instead of being in that whirlwind where you cannot pick a problem to focus on, or you can't isolate issues in a manner to which you can deal with them as an individual, then you can kind of, I literally envisage before I go to bed, just lying on my back, looking at the sky and then my thoughts passing by as clouds. And then, there'll be some breathing practices, which are things like, count your breaths in and out, body scanning and things like that, which I found was a very different experience to what I was even expecting from meditation. Mm-hmm. And of course, then it goes a lot deeper, doesn't it? You have different practices, different branches of different practices like you have in anything. And it's up to you to find which one really does work for you. And I think it's important for anyone who's listening, who's thinking meditation is just not for me, is how do you know that without giving it a try? And as Jack and I spoke about, I think on a podcast we released recently about dieting, you don't know if something works unless you've given it a good crack, 2 weeks or so, but also try different realms of that. Just because you don't like broccoli doesn't mean you hate vegetables. Just because you don't like cola doesn't mean you hate fizzy drinks. It just means that particular one doesn't suit you. So have a look around. Don't give up on something because that particular person was annoying or that particular vibe wasn't for you. Have a look because there's tons.
Yeah. I've been using an app called Waking Up for some time now. It's by a guy called Sam Harris. Felipe actually introduced me to Sam Harris and his podcast. He's such a good thinker, an intelligent guy, and does really interesting interviews. And his Waking Up app's fantastic. And I heard about that through a podcast of his. And he even said that it's a premium. I think you pay, it's like 100 or 120 quid a year or something. You pay it yearly. But he said on that podcast, if anyone can't afford it, send them an email to support and he'll give you full access for free, no questions asked. Oh. So if anyone out there is listening and wants to get on board with something like that, but doesn't want to pay or can't afford to pay for the premium of Headspace or Calm or the full Waking Up price, then definitely explore that route and take him up on that because it is an invaluable tool. Yeah,
I agree, and I use the same app, and It's amazing. The gains you make from meditating every day, and the way he put things. He's a very intelligent man, and it's yeah, what he's offering is very valuable to people.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things, Anna, that you said that stuck with me is about how you, when you did start, you start to suddenly see all these things come up like clouds, like thoughts, and I really noticed that in that a lot of people say at the start as a barrier, "Oh, I can't meditate because when I sit down, all these things come up." And actually, that's probably a sign to go deeper. That's probably a sign that you need another 5 minutes, maybe another 10, because
Yeah.
at that time, all those things, if you just ignore it and you go back to your day-to-day life without kind of filing them into their filing cabinets and sorting them, they're still there, but they're just pushed to your subconscious. And I really found this, that again, that like you, when I started, all these things would come up that I didn't even know were still there, or that I hadn't dealt with, or that I was still thinking about. And all of a sudden, these start flying into the forefront of your mind, and you realize, oh shit, I haven't actually dealt with this fully. I haven't actually fully got past this, or I'm still holding some hurt around this, or even much more mundane stuff. Like I've done a silent meditation retreat that was 4 days. It was kind of like an introductory one before you go and do the full 9 day retreat. And in probably about the first day and a half, I was like looping Christmas songs in my head on repeat. I was thinking about food. I was like just doing the most ridiculous shit for like a day and a half. And it was all this stuff that was obviously just sat down there somewhere in my subconscious that I just hadn't thought about and hadn't like got out of my system. And so the first day and a half was basically a write-off for me, that I was just clearing all these thoughts. And it wasn't until like the middle of that second day really onwards that I was able to fully focus and fully meditate and actually get quiet in my mind, because so much stuff was just sat there in the background. And doing that daily practice can help to reduce that background noise and that background stress, to where you can actually then make the main thing and focus on stuff that you choose to, rather than things that are potentially controlling you from the subconscious.
Yeah. To take us full circle to something just before we pass on to the next kind of point, when you mentioned Viktor Frankl a minute ago, and we were talking about things in his book and things that have helped, and kind of tying that into meditation, one of the quotes in his book, and I'll get this wrong, but Google it and it will come up correct. One of the quotes from his book, near to the end, is something like, instead of asking what I want from life, start asking what life expects from me. And the really interesting thing about that quote that I think ties in personally for me to both meditation and to kind of digging yourself out of situations that may be difficult, or as you said earlier, people have been through these things, is looking at that quote and thinking, well, we are actually inherently egotistical human beings. Like, not us as three, but people care a lot about themselves. And so when things go wrong, a lot of people will say, why me? Or why does this have to happen to me? Or it's always me. And the truth is, you're basically getting a shovel out and digging yourself further and further down that line of self-pity, in a sense. And the way that this ties in for me to meditation is two things. One, if you're able to separate those things that are causing that self-pity, to be able to deal with them, then firstly, you've got some bricks underneath you, right? Your digging is going to begin to stop. But secondly, the minute you start to realize that actually life isn't here to make it okay for you, like things aren't supposed to go your way all the time and they never will, that's when you start to get more bricks to climb out of that hole. That's when you start to go, all right then, challenge me. What have you got for me? Let's play. Because that's what life is, right? Life is taking things by the throat and making them roll the way you want them to roll. And when the punches start flowing, it's about taking them and saying, what can I do with this? And something that I found meditation did was help me to reflect more deeply on the things that were coming my way, rather than just ram them back down to the back of my mind and go, I'll deal with that later. It's a case of rolling with the punches, yes, but actually taking them in and going, why did that offend me? Why did what that person said offend me? Well, actually, when I was in school, I was bullied for X, Y, Z. And actually, when they said to me, hey, you're looking a bit bigger at the moment, I was immediately offended by that, because when I was at school, I was bullied for being fat. I actually wasn't, but that's an example. And so I think what you've just said there, Jack, about reflecting on the things that are deeper, to me says, if we can dig out the things which are deeper, we inadvertently enable ourselves to walk along a path which is not always easier, but certainly clearer going forward when it comes to making positive changes to our mental health and to how we view ourselves and what the world does. Does that kind of make sense?
I think you just want to make sure that you are, like you say, actually on the right path and dealing with the right stuff. If you're always avoiding it and you're always just kind of working on that surface level, is what I'd kind of compare it to. If you're always just scraping away at the surface and never actually sorting out the foundation, you're not really going to get over those things that are limiting you, over those things that are holding you back. If every time a little bit of pain or discomfort comes up, you just dive into watching TV or, going out with your mates and drinking or doing something that is just a little bit of escapism, which is not bad.
Smashing Ben and Jerry's.
Yeah, which is not bad in and of itself. But when it's used as like a coping tool to always avoid going deeper, that's where you can end up with some real long-term kind of etched in patterns that I think end up negatively influencing your view of life and the way that you look at things. And honestly, as well, as an adult, really start to beat you down with time. You really start to get kind of damaged by it and beaten down by it if you let it constantly run as that narrative in your life, rather than actually getting down deeper and properly diving into it and starting to sort out what it might be that's causing it and really acknowledging it.
Thing that you mentioned there about going deeper and being on the surface, I think is worse. I think it's worse. It's not only less effective, but I think it's actually more damaging to only deal with the things on the surface. The way I envisage that is like a boat with a bunch of anchors. You're the boat trying to progress through life, trying to do your thing. And the more anchors that you have to the ground, the slower you're going to be progressing forward. Mm-hmm. All you're doing is effectively looking at the seaweed on the top of the sea that's stopping your progress, right? You're thinking all of this stuff around here is what's causing me these issues. But in my opinion, the truth of those little things lies in the anchors that hold you down. Take this back to fitness, for example. A lot of people won't stick to their macros or can't stick to training and won't commit to these things. And a lot of that tends to roll all the way back down to a fear of failure. Because at some point they tried at something that didn't go well and they either end up getting ridiculed for it or they lost a lot of self-confidence because of it. So now they're very reticent to really pouring their heart into something else. And if you can deal with that base level of disappointment with whatever the situation was or the kind of ridicule that you underwent, then they were releasing those anchors that are holding you down. And those surface issues then almost float away because they wouldn't be an issue if you didn't have that deeper rooted problem.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I think that's a nice analogy to really envision how it can hold you back.